right, welcome everyone to the October C4K community webinar. We are so happy that you are joining us today. We have a really exciting topic that we're going to talk about. One quick thing that I want to say though, before we get started, is just thank you for thriving in C4K convening. It was such a special, cool experience being with everyone. And if you haven't had a chance to fill out like the little feedback survey, I'm going to drop that in the chat for you. So there's still time to do that. Otherwise, I am just going to hand it right over to Kelly because she is ready to go.
Okay, let's do awesome sharing here. Everybody see screen? This is great because I can see you and it controls and the screen. So, welcome everyone. And I hope that the presentation today, if you were at the convening last week, that this is just a teeny bit different because we're putting this topic about building trust using your data and stories in context of the community of WASA and what they are working on and how they're going to use their data to create a really strong communications effort. So it just so happened I wanted to build a presentation on this building trust with your data topic because it's tough to do in our current environment. And WASA is doing this at the same time, and I'm helping them kind of pull all of their various communication pieces together. So it just kind of worked out, and hopefully this will be a benefit to everyone participating. And I see Darren, and I see, yeah,
Yep.
hi. All right. Welcome. So I'll run through basically the outline that I had prepared for the convening last week and just lay the groundwork. And then I'm going to turn it over to Vasa so they can tell you about how they're approaching their communications and their program and how they're using data to make that case, not just for, of course, we got to have funders, but also to build that trust within the community, which is the most important thing to do when you're moving forward. And so, quick session overview here. Just want to kind of put a spotlight on the challenge of using data. How we are kind of in an environment where both families, stakeholders, communities, people in general are getting so much information, and skepticism about the information they get isn't at an all-time high. And there's lots of conflicting information. So when you're trying to make an important decision, whether it's to create a childcare in your community or launch an initiative, or if your family just looking for the right fit, there's just so much information to weed through. It can cause people to just say, I don't think we can make a decision. It becomes too scary. But the opportunity is with C4K communities in particular, you can take lots of that data, stories, the surveys that you do, the community collaborations that you have, take that, bring it together, and really put together a strong case with data and stories that you can keep putting out there through your various channels in order to build that trust. Create that place where if people have questions or they are skeptical or they don't know where to turn, that you can be that source. And some key takeaways, just strategies, framework, tools. And like I said, we will move beyond this, and WASA will talk about their strategic approach as a real example. So the thing that we're trying to all get through when we're putting together communications, whether we're trying to convince a funder to join the effort or a stakeholder, is this trust gap that I just mentioned. So families facing too many choices, too little time, and so do all of you. So do communities, stakeholders, funders, investors. There's so much data saying this is the most important thing, or this is how you should do this. Hard to know which programs are messages to trust. And of course, trust is the currency of any messaging, but especially early childhood messaging. because this is our most important resource. So these are areas where we want to make sound decisions. So what do we see is working? As far as content that really gets people's attention, where you see people being more participatory in community conversations, those authentic voices are really helping to build credibility now more than ever. We have gone through periods where outside data was trusted more than local data or outside voices, but we've kind of shifted kind of toward the middle a bit where that local story data information, because we haven't been able to hear that for a while, that's where people are tending to engage at a higher level. You want tangible outcomes, human stories when you're putting those stories together, because those are the things that make it real and resonate with people. There is uh, a testimonial story that was able to find where when the organization combined both the human story and the data for a recruitment campaign for parents to get involved with an initiative, they had double the engagement. And so that tends to be the right approach when you are doing any type of recruitment around early childhood. What's working in digital presence? Many of you will ask me, usually you have a Facebook page that's up and going and it's really kicking. That works because you want mobile friendly and you want it to be clear. Social is great. It's an ongoing conversation. It keeps things relevant. Clear website that when people want to see what is this organization, who are these individuals, what is this all about, you do want to make sure your website communicates credibility and also builds that trust. So you're making the connections between what they're seeing on the social and then what they will see when they visit a website. It could even be some of you just have a web page. As long as it's clear, it's professional, and the visuals and the stories align with what you have on social, that's what helps build that trust. I just added a quick story here. What you can do with your social, sometimes you might be promoting a program in your community, for example, one that provides midnight access for childcare. If it's only on your website, it's very unlikely that people are going to know about it and find it. I found a local story where because the community posted multiple times about this opportunity that two different providers were offering, those providers filled up really quickly because they were not having to search for it on a challenging place to find that information. It was really being fed to them through their social. So what's working with community engagement, and most of you are really great at this. You'll see WASA's already got some goals set around building partnerships, schools, businesses, chambers, having grassroots events, community presentations. A lot of you will plan a stakeholders dinner. Those are the types of things that really get people engaged at a deeper level. You can also look at partnerships with your local business in order to broaden that engagement. Found a story about a early childhood community initiative and a local bakery that the bakery for about a month promoted all of the benefits of the initiative. And of course, a lot of families go to the bakery to get lots of good things. So they were able to kind of develop this theme, and the bakery ended up helping that organization grow. And then in turn, the initiative's able to give more business to the bakery. So they're able to tell that story about how just that simple act of working together helped build more audience and engagement. And then what's working for what we call reputation management or PR? It's basically the impression that people get when they are taking in your information. You want to make sure that they are feeling, again, that trust. They're starting to feel a bond and connection to you and your messaging. Ways to do that consistency across all your various channels. Like I just mentioned, some of you are starting to get into Instagram. You're gonna hear, I think Wassa will talk a little bit about video storytelling because they have that talent within the community to help them with that. The more that you can create consistent communication themes and threads, the more that people start to recognize you and build that trust with you. Um, Encourage and respond to reviews. When I presented this at C4K recently, I asked how many people do respond and ask people to comment, and a lot of people do, which is great because it is a big job to try to do that and keep up with it. But again, if you're building that trust, that doesn't become a burdensome job. That actually helps establish and build your community. And then those transparent responses, there's a lot of people who'd like to dip down and read the comments, not just for the drama, but also to just see who else is involved and what questions they're asking, and more importantly, how you're responding. So even if there's something that comes up that challenges you or something that you have been doing in the community, that open response and conversation really helps restore the trust. Quick list of what's not working. Some of this will sound like, well, obviously, but these are easy things to overlook. The inconsistent branding or confusion, which I always feel like I love working with collaboratives because there's so many people at the table, but the branding's tough because there's so many people at the table. If you are able to agree on a consistent brand presence, how you're going to present yourselves to the community under a united name, a look, a feel, colors, and brand. Again, that creates legitimacy, not just with your audience, but also with search engines. It basically tells all those search engines that this is an organization that is established and that you can trust. Generic messaging versus forgettable. Again, going to as much of those data story pieces that are unique to the community versus kind of pulling some things off of the web and putting them on your channel. It's much preferred. You're going to get a lot more engagement that way. Ignoring digital accessibility is something that is becoming more of a challenge. I think there are quite a few people here who had said when we talked a few weeks ago that they are looking at what we call ADA compliance, or making sure that whatever you have online or that your website is set up for ADA compliance, meaning it's easy to read. It can be adapted depending on anyone's needs. And if that's not something you're paying attention to, that's where your information can kind of get lost and become invisible. If anybody ever needs a tip on contracting or consulting with an ADA specialist, I know one of the best in the state. So make a note of that, and I can reach out and connect you with her. And then over-promising services, that is something that just creates that credibility loss. Work with a lot of communities that I think their biggest fear is they're going to launch something and they want to put a date on it so everybody gets excited. But they're so afraid that that date's going to get changed. And then people are going to kind of fall away. I think the consistent communication is what can help you with that. Of course, dates are going to change. But if you're keeping people updated, it avoids that big, like, this didn't happen. So just a quick framework, you can screenshot this. This is something I always like run everything that I'm working with community on through this framework. Is it clear? So you want to focus on clarity. Is it simple to understand who you are and what you're all about as an initiative? Consistency. So does the voice and the look of who you are show up pretty similar, whether it's your case for support, print materials, poster, digital, website, social? Does it all look like it's part of the same organization or family? Connection, so engaging families and funders. Is it talking to one, the other, or both? And then credibility. It's that stories plus data. It's like the perfect recipe for building trust. One thing you can do is take a note today on, especially if you're working with C4K on communications, something good to start thinking about is which pillar, like trust pillar here, are we finding is the biggest challenge? Because if you can make great improvements in just one area, the others tend to fall in line. I do find that over time, like clarity used to be really tough. And the past few years, I have been really impressed with C4K communities with wanting to just like, okay, we have a lot of information, but we want to hook them here, and then we're going to bring them further into the data. I feel like that is something everybody can always work on and improve. And I've just seen it get better. I think just working with C4K perhaps, or working together as a collaboration, you start to see we cannot make this too complicated or we're going to lose people. So using your local data to build trust, this is where being a C4K community is really beneficial because you get lots of local data, different types of data pieces in order to build that trust. Families and stakeholders, they're going to trust what they see. So if you're putting something out there, if they see that reflected in their own community, then they're more likely to trust that data that you're putting forward. And your local surveys and enrollment data, it always adds context to any national or even outside your state, outside your community data. I like national data. I like state level data. But when you're really building a local approach, I like to always have that in context of something that you have local. Just a few case studies. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I kind of like this first one, Kent County, Michigan. They did rapid family surveys. So what they were finding is as soon as they would put out a survey, a lot of that information was outdated by the time they got it all put together and then started messaging. So what they did was they were able to put together a collaboration where they're able to do basically like place-based quick surveys. It's almost like think of your customer service surveys that you might get from a provider, and process that more quickly, show gaps, and then publish it more quickly. Then they use that data to align services, show gaps, push for equitable access, justify their local tax levies, to fund all of those early childhood supports. Why it builds data, it's coming from the community, but it almost feels like it's real time. So it's reflecting the family's actual experiences. Again, something that takes a collaborative effort to do. I wanted to touch on ROI metrics because I work with a lot of communities that have some good ROI metrics, but they're not always sure how to use those. There are lots of ROI metrics and data points that come from state and national sources. What we're finding at times is that ROI for modern audiences can feel a little abstract or distanced from families and communities. At times, what people think is it may misrepresent the local realities if it's not ROI data that's specific to that community. I think for some of you, you get the early childhood analysis through NPPD. I feel like those data points are really great if you can combine those data points and show a local example or story that really grounds it. That's what really helps make that ROI metric information a little more powerful for your audiences. If you're putting out a lot of ROI data and people just feel like, I don't really trust that, that every dollar I give, we're going to get seven back. I don't know about that. If you're actually able to show examples, that's what can shift their skepticism to trust. Alternative ways to share impact. A lot of you have this type of data. It's great to use. So access data, slots, wait lists, percent served, family benefits. So parents working, how it's benefiting kids in school, quality indicators. So ratios, training, curriculum, partnerships, schools, health, businesses. How is this helping pull the community together and helping everyone work together? And then also that just transparency of the consistent wins and sharing of challenges. When you can share challenges and people really get on board, not say, oh, here's another thing, um, then you're doing a good job because they're bought in and they're now seeing the benefits of investment and they want to help. So these are just some quick, Wasa will show you some of the things or talk about some of the things that they're emphasizing. Use narrative examples that kind of mix a bit of information with a data point. I always try to do that whenever I can. Um, Most of you do some type of community survey. I love to use some of those pull quotes. I think the survey process actually asks permission to use the quotes, even if they're anonymous. If you have those, I like to intersperse those throughout either a website, case for support, presentation, whatever it might be. And then I'll touch quickly on the cultural relevance messaging. So with many communities, they're trying to build trust across many different groups of people. And they need to make sure that the messaging they're putting out there is culturally relevant so that it strengthens that bond and connection. Ignoring that, because it's can sometimes be complex, can really create barriers to engaging with your initiative, enrollment, and support. So just a quick example from outside Nebraska, Blackfeet Early Childhood Center in Montana. One of the things they did was integrate Blackfeet language and cultural teachings into the classroom, also had elders share stories, traditions, and that really helped build the bridges between generations and the different learning environments. So the takeaway there is having elders involved, having that cultural focus and knowledge really builds the authentic trust. So quick review, 5 rules from using your local data to build trust. Whenever you can, give the local data, make it local, use county, city, neighborhood level. Pair your numbers with stories, combine those stats with parent provider voices. Be transparent, so share both progress and challenges honestly. Nothing goes perfectly, right? So actually showing challenges makes your story more real. Keep it simple and visual as much as you can. Use those, especially if C4K has worked with you, use those maps, charts, dashboards, and then show the equity. Disaggregate your data in order to highlight fairness and inclusion when that is critical to your need in your community. These are a variety of like less expensive tools and tactics I see people use in order to build that solid website, have your social media look really great and on point, having consistent email look, feel, voice, and then making sure that if you are an entity, if you're 501c3, if you are building a community center and now you're ready to roll, always check your Google business profile. It's the least expensive way to help you build the credibility and get more people aware of what you're doing. So you only have 5 hours a month. Make sure you got your communications playbook. I always say case for support, Content, meaning stories, community presentation. It's a great place to start. Organize it so that it's simple stories with data and outcomes. Share those stories grounded in data. Post authentic stories frequently, so don't hold them back. Come up with a decent schedule. Once a week is fine. Several times a week is great. And then monitor and respond, so that you're answering questions and you're engaging in conversation. And then when you get the hard questions, sometimes those are great to integrate into your communications playbook. All right. So we're going to be building relationships, differentiating with your unique story, and focusing on your high value, your low cost communications activities. And now, da-da-da, we have WASA. And I'm not going to show a visual, Darren, and if you have one, I will stop sharing here. But I do have your draft case if you need me to refer to it.
That's fine if you'd like to. We do not have a visual for you. If you want to,
That's the visual.
yeah.
Sure.
Mhm. Joni just said it's just us, so we apologize for
I think
the
that's
visual.
the best visual possible.
Darren Vanessa and partner in crime, Joni Burns, and I'll have Joni kick us off.
So we start out by talking about Wausau. Our community is small, 600 people. It's a place where maybe you know everybody, maybe you don't, but so Darren and I have been in the community living neighbors across the street from one another for probably 30 years. I would say everyone knows us, if not us know everyone, but so there's our trust. And that was kind of how things began. I work with a daycare center located in town that was struggling financially, and I just threw my hands up. I said, I don't know what to do, because we just can't balance the budget. We are relying on so many donations, and he's part of the foundation in our community. And so I just said, help. And that's how we kind of got started looking around for options. And so the Community for Kids, I hadn't heard of it before. You might have been the one to find it. And so we've just started building our team. We have early childhood educators and with the superintendent. Plus, we also have people from the local daycare and the center, a retired nurse, a few parents, and we just started, we got to do something. Can you help us? We've had some activities like the Week of the Young Child, and that brought a lot of parents and children out of the woodwork, and they were really talking about, this is so cool. It's great. I hope you do this again. And so that's kind of how we started to get our word out of who we were and what we were trying to accomplish. Yes, we have a Facebook page, but there's only about 29 followers, I think. So in our community, we just feel like face-to-face conversations. I've been to businesses talking to the owners, talking to the bank, and just telling them about us and things that what we're trying to accomplish. So the survey that we put out was well received. I'd say we had over 100 people who answered that survey, and so now we're trying to build from there.
So the survey really started to give us some data, but I think what really attracted us to C4K is the process that you have in place, and we just didn't have a process. It didn't really know what the next steps might be, and so that's the thing that we were very attracted to, and I'll be the first to say we don't have this figured out. We're learning on the run, and but we're following the process that C4K brings us, and that's critical for our success. But we have the results of the survey, and we're reaching out to the business owners, as Joni said, and looking forward to in the near future having a meeting with businesses in town. And we're a small town, so we're not a industrial metropolis for sure. There's not 50 businesses here that we can go talk to, but we want to have a stakeholder meeting of those business owners and explain the problem, because and I think C4K told us from the beginning, a lot of this job is more of a communication project, and that's how we're looking at it. So we want to reach out to them and make sure they understand the problem as it exists. And I think they will, as business owners, and knowing what they pay for wages and things like that. And also, I met with one of these long-term leaders from our community recently, and he is very supportive, very interested, very, very curious about what we're doing. But he says, the challenge is always going to be, well, just can't you charge more? Well, in rural Nebraska, a family of three, if their child care bill is a real number is $29,000, they're going to think twice about the job that they have and the income that they're bringing in rural Nebraska. So that really frames the challenge up very well. But in the stakeholder meeting, we've always felt that maybe we don't have all the answers, but when we get together with the right people, we will come up with the right solution for this community that may not match up to everyone else's need, but it'll be crafted for this community. So very much looking forward to that as a beginning for these businesses. They're very curious. Joni's done an excellent job of reaching out, and she's already raised money from them. So we know there's interest and a willingness or a want to help. So very much looking forward to that. And I think that'll get us started. And then we'll continue to do things like Joni mentioned with the Week of the Young Child, those kinds of things to give us platforms to reach out and help parents and be a place parents can go. But also just to promote this little community as a place where you can find childcare. The stat that people tend to live where they find childcare and drive to work. I believe in that wholeheartedly, and that's will be a great platform for us to recruit people to come to Wausau to live. I'm not sure I have much more, or we have much more. If there's any questions.
I wondered if you could talk about how you're also looking at how you can help nearby communities. I feel like that's pretty unique about your story when you talk about how near like Bloomfield, Crofton, Creighton, they're really like beginning to address their childcare shortages, but if you all can grow together, what kind of impact that can
Yeah, and I
have?
think we can help. I hope we help model the way, and we all learn together. We've reached out to our county economic developer and are working with her to continue to promote what we're doing and help us all learn together as we're all in the infant stages of communities for kids in each of our communities. We're very fortunate because there's probably 3 or 4 or 5 communities around us that are going through some of the same things. So uh, in a sense, we can learn together, learn from each other that way. One thing I didn't mention, and you had mentioned earlier, we are very fortunate. We have a very talented videographer in our community that we want to work with to help spread the message. He's very good with creating videos that help or that people want to watch to the end, if you know what I mean. But to help tell our story, to tell the story about who we are, what we've accomplished so far, what we intend to accomplish. Um, so looking forward to that. We decided right now we're going to put that on pause, that we need to get a little further into our process, but then we'll unleash his talents And we have what we call WASA Media Group, which is a website and social media group of folks that manage our social media. So, our Joni mentioned our Facebook page for Communities for Kids is really small, but we also have a much larger social media presence with the community social media sites, and we'll leverage that every chance we get.
Any other questions?
Crickets.
We always count to 10. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kelly and Darren and Joni, for joining us. We will send out this recording. And Kelly, if there's any materials that you want me to send, like your slides, feel free to send those my way and I can forward those on as well. And we will see you all at our next meeting, December 3rd. We'll send that link with the recording.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone.
Thank you.